Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue VA, Bridge Financial, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, the Chiro Speaking Company, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from a full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 654 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Heath Treharne. And if you want to hear our conversation about communication, professionalism, and strategic planning, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I have Heath Treharne on with me today, episode 654. It's a pleasure to have you on today. I know that we're going to jump into this game. We're going to talk about life at Sherman, practicing at ground zero of chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa. And then we're going to shift into chiropractic education and chiropractic business, which I think are very important for people that follow our show to get from somebody that's on faculty at the center of the chiropractic universe, Sherman College. And thank you, Sherman College, for being a sponsor of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It's been something of a great honor to be attached to your brand and to that the college. It's actually turning the chapters of the future for chiropractic. So we'll talk more about that also. But before we get into your story, Dr. Heath, I am going to tell people our big why. I'll be as brief as I can with it, but I think it's fundamental to the show. Our big why is we protect freedom of speech. I do that so you guys don't have to do that so much. So I carry the heavy load for chiropractic and protect freedom of speech with our show. And just to let people know, we are in the 2.5 percentile of 3,300,000 global podcasts. So people are definitely listening to what we're doing over here, and they're learning about chiropractic from Chiro Hustle. We also believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. If you don't know how to find that, go find a chiropractor. I endorse the chiropractic profession. So if you're a family out there and you don't know where to go or who to trust for your questions about medical freedom or family health freedoms, go find a chiropractor. We also protect BJ Palmer Sacred Trust. If you don't know what that is, go to our show notes and search for BJ Palmer Sacred Trust, and you're going to learn more about chiropractic than you ever did beforehand. I guarantee you, even if you've been practicing a decade, refresh yourself. We do support subluxation-based chiropractic. We believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical, gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual, and that creates educated intelligence. And that's what we all should be going towards. And with that, Dr. Heath, you're episode 654. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
It's been a long time coming. I had to go to 2 lyceums to hunt you down.
Absolutely. And I think we've rescheduled this 2 or 3 times. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
So
like I said, I'm excited to be here and excited to share what we're doing here.
Yeah. So take people into the snapshot of how you decided chiropractic was the right pathway for you. And then we'll fast forward to life at Sherman today.
Okay. Well, my pathway to chiropractic is a little bit of a journey. I was raised and was into multiple entrepreneurs and teachers in my lineage. So whenever I went to college, I actually was a teacher of entrepreneurship. I taught in West Virginia systems for about 10 years. And during that time, I was a women's varsity rowing coach. And so a lot of that, it was a two-handed thing here because I was teaching business and hospitality and entrepreneurship. But on the other hand, I was creating a philosophy. It was all based on balance and perfection and unity and teamwork. So I was creating this philosophy of life of all about balance. And my original intent back in junior high was to be a chiropractor. But like I said, that journey of life kind of shifts you around a little bit. And so it wasn't until I was teaching and my wife was getting ready to graduate her profession or her degree at that point in time that we went out to visit a couple friends of ours out at Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was practicing with Bob Brooks. And we got our first real upper cervical adjustment, and it really changed our lives at that point in time. My wife was dealing with some inflammation issues. I was just dealing with chronic imbalance issues just with my hips and pelvis. And after that upper cervical adjustment, it really changed the dynamics about what we're doing. And over the next couple of years, we just decided, you know what, maybe we should check this out. And so we drove out to Davenport. And as soon as we went into the beltway of the Quad Cities, God spoke to us and said, you know, we're supposed to be here. So at that point in time, we shifted our game. This is the end of September that year. I closed out my year of teaching. So I moved out. We both moved out in June of the following year, started our trek there, and God kept us there for another 20 years. So it's been a really interesting thing, but it really does set me up here at Sherman quite interestingly, because again, it reflects back on my formal education of entrepreneurship, marketing, and adult teaching. So it really led me into that to allow me to lean into what we're doing right now at Sherman.
And so interesting. You come from an entrepreneur mindset and teaching other people business strategies and coaching. And then this amazing thing with Bob Brooks, which is taking care of people, was his program.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times, and actually had a chance to have him interviewed early on in the Chiro Hustle interview.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And, you know, when we think about why we do this thing, a podcast on chiropractic, it's because there's people like Bob Brooks that have been on our show that now people can go and investigate who this man was that's no longer with us.
Right.
And it keeps record of this beautiful profession from the voice of the practitioners. And, you know, there's people out there that are your students that will listen to this, colleagues, family members that might have lost why you do what you do. So we can re-engage them with your truth, and we can re-engage them with your story, which I think is the most powerful part of podcasting, because these things last into perpetuity. They're here.
Right.
They're not going anywhere. So we have a database of these amazing stories with Chiro Hustle. And I just think it's really cool that you took that chance and went to Davenport, Iowa, and you stood 20 years in the Midwest, and you got your degree from Palmer, and then you practiced there in the Quad Cities.
Yeah.
What was that like, developing into a chiropractor, coming out of the original Fountainhead and then spilling out onto the streets of Davenport, Iowa, or the Quad Cities, wherever you were, and saying, I'm going to set up shop here?
Yeah, it was an interesting ordeal. I thought, you know what, coming out of chiropractic, I've always thought collaboration is the key. I never really looked at other chiropractors as my competition, just because if we can build things together, we can build them bigger and better and make them last longer, rather than just settling up my own little camp. But as a subluxation-based chiropractor, as someone that looks at chiropractic as chiropractic, it was quite different because my initial intent as I stepped out of the doorways into the streets of the Quad Cities, I was thinking that people knew what chiropractic was, so it would be a little bit easier to step into that. However, one thing I did not um, really think about or develop into is what was their perception of chiropractic, because what I ended up doing is whenever I talked about being a chiropractor or a cervical doctor, they would look at me and say, well, my back hurts or my back doesn't hurt, so I don't need you, or I do need you because my back hurts, because there is so much attachment to low back or neck pain that with the chiropractor around that area, that I had to reteach a lot of people about what chiropractic was really focusing in on. And so that became the biggest challenge. Whenever I set up my second office, it was about an hour north of the Quad Cities. It was much simpler because a lot of people didn't know what chiropractic was, so they didn't have to be retrained, so to say, or re-educated about what chiropractic is, just because of their preconceived ideas. But
So,
yeah, it was pretty neat. My office is in downtown Rock Island. I could take 25 steps to the corner of the road and turn to my right, and I would see Palmer up on the hill just because I was that close to it. But it was a great time, just because it opened up the doors to a lot of other students into this type of profession, into this technique. And that was one of our goals with establishing it there, is really to open up for our community and to serve our student population at the same time. And that's still what we're trying to do here at Sherman.
well, I have this love story with chiropractic, and I think if everybody knew what you know about being in Davenport, Iowa, and close to that college, and seeing how much life that college produced, like all of the pivotal characters in chiropractic were produced from Palmer. And now
Yeah.
we have like global education. But before there was global education, there was one. And that's my hometown. So I have a certain reverence with this affinity for, I call it Palmerland.
Yep.
And you having set up practice in Palmerland, I think it's a great narrative to where you are today, because I think Sherman is fundamentally what Palmer had been so proud of its lineage for so long. And now I feel like the baton's been passed to Spartanburg, South Carolina, to Sherman. And the same fundamentals that chiropractic was founded upon are now alive and well with Sherman College out in Spartanburg. So taking that fundamental education that you had in upper cervical practice, then coming to Sherman. Why Sherman? Why did you decide that this was the right move for you?
Well, that too was not really my decision. That was led. I was part of the leadership of the Illinois Prairie State Association up in Illinois, where we were practicing, and I went to a fall convention. And being part of that leadership team, you always have to entertain the speakers and make sure that they're taken care of. So I went back in the back of the room to discuss or to talk with the speaker that we had in for that seminar, and it happened to be Bob Irwin back there. I didn't know Bob at the time, and Rick Brescia was also back speaking at that point in time. So I was just entertaining him, and we were discussing different things about our practice, about the school, about our goals, our ambitions. And my wife has always had the ambition to teach. I've always had that in me as well, because that's just my fundamental training. And after that intermission time, he handed me a business card and said, "We need to have a continued discussion about this." And so I went back to the table and looked at his business card, and it read Bob Irwin Provost. And I thought for a moment, what's a provost? Because I didn't know. I was looking it up. And so you have your phone, you did a quick little search, and provost, he was the second guy in charge of Sherman College. And so at that point in time, I just entertained my wife. I looked up Sherman because I didn't know if Sherman was in the Carolinas or Texas. I knew it was one of the two, but I really didn't even know which Carolina it was. So I looked up where it was, and I just went to realtor.com and just looked up a quick house and sent the picture of the house to my wife and said, "What do you think about this house?" And she replied back, "Why?" And I just led her on to a little bit of the story. And lo and behold, a couple weeks after that, we had a long weekend available to us. So my wife and I went from the Quad Cities down to Sherman. And at that point in time, there wasn't the new development and the renovations happening at the school. And we drove up on a Thursday. We got a tour of the place. And about the third dean that or the chair that we were introduced to, we realized that those chairs already knew our story. They already were discussing about bringing Cindy and I on to the team. And then we had a discussion with Dr. D'Onofrio following, which led to our interview in a few months from that point, just because that would be our next opportunity for this. But we got the same sense whenever we drove down there that October about God saying, "You know what, you're supposed to be coming here." And so at that point in time, we had 2 practices to sell. We had a house to sell. We had 4 kids to transfer down here. We had a lot of moving parts. And all of that, there was so many fingerprints of God in that entire thing that it just was almost seamless to transition down here. So it just made sense. We've made this our home now. We have great pride in the school that we're here serving now, and it's just a great place to be. And like you said, this is almost the rebirth of the Fountainhead. So the Spartanburg area is called the Hub City. So maybe this is the hub of the new chiropractic. So it's kind of fun to take a look at.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue VA, Bridge Financial, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, the Chiro Speaking Company, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from a full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle. I think it's really powerful what you opened up that train of thought with. And that train of thought was, I was at a Prairie State Association meeting and I met somebody I didn't know that would go on to have a profound impact on my life. But without you being in service and showing up to that meeting and being a part of that association, Sherman never happens.
Right.
And that's why I want to urge people that are watching this to show up to Sherman Lyceum, because you never know who you're going to be rubbing shoulders with or who you'll have access to that you might not have ever had access to before. And they might have a profound impact on you. And you might be the next person working for Sherman or working with Sherman for the initiatives that they're fostering for chiropractic, which I think is really important for people to take into perspective. Is when you make yourself available to expansion and connection, you never know what God is going to choose for you and where you'll eventually be on your journey to. So I think it's really cool you sharing the initial story about Bob Brooks. I think it's really cool that you share your next story about Irwin. And I believe that if people just pay attention to the path of life, they can have a life of abundance and service. And I believe that service is something that chiropractic excels in. And I know that now you're in this realm of education and helping with students. This is where the question set shifts now to the perspective of working with students. What do you find as the most important things to the students that attend Sherman and that are specifically in your class of business development today? Like, what do you see as their greatest challenges, and what do you see as what they need the most?
Wow, this has changed since I've been here. My wife and I have been here 6 years now, and that question right there it's fundamentally changed because of the mindset. There's a different group of students coming in now that are much younger, that are with less life experience, that is just coming out of traditional education rather than going into another career or having a miracle story about chiropractic. It is something that it is a challenge. And so coming into Sherman, helping out with the business program here, understanding what some business fundamentals are, I think that is really essential for these students to start to understand, because of the lack of business fundamentals that they've had in a classical sense. Many of them aren't going to be full-time employment anytime throughout their career, except maybe summer jobs. So whenever they're leaving a chiropractic college with a terminal degree, a lot of them are fearful about starting up on their own. Their idea is to associate so they can get more experience, because that's been the pattern of their life. And we're just trying to introduce them the idea of hope and the ability to step forward without that fear, or at least if they do have that fear, understand what some of those steps can be to minimize the fear, and do it anyways.
Well, this takes me to a really interesting question then. You talked about these young minds coming in and being molded through the education process at Sherman. And you're like, most of these graduates are choosing to go into an associateship because that makes sense to them. From your perspective, what is the ideal runtime that you would recommend somebody to go in to become an associate before they strap it up themselves and say, you know what, I'm going to go be my own boss now, and I'm going to open up my own practice? Is there like a timeline that you recommend to a chiropractic student that they should become an associate and then say, hey, this is the next chapter?
If they're doing that as little as they can. And that's just a honest opinion here. Whenever I'm taking a look at that, I'm looking at the debt load that they're also investing in into their education. So many of these associate positions aren't able to get their loan debt paid off as soon as they are. A lot of my peers that are out in the field serving right now aren't understanding that the debt loads of $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 now, and what that looks like at a 6% interest rate. So it does really want to get you to be as productive as you can, and honestly start making money so you can repay that debt and to invest in your future.
Well, I think that that's a really, really honest answer, because as I've been a part of this profession, I know that the education resources haven't gone down. And I know that the cost per unit for a semester or a trimester, whatever the schools educate on, There's a different quantitative cost
Mhm.
for the education, even 6 years ago when you started to today. And I think it's a really a sobering perspective to say, look, go be an associate, but don't do it for life. And I think that that's where associate contracts have to be negotiated properly
Yeah.
with the new graduates to know that non-competes don't stand anymore.
Yep.
And if you're going to hire somebody in and apprentice, have an apprentice or an associate at your practice, there should be a kind of a catch and release policy that, like, hey, you're going to come in, you're going to do like a residency for 2 years. I'm going to pay you, and then you're free to go, or you're free to buy me out, or you stay here and become a partner. But I think the old model of spilling a chiropractor out into the free market and seeing how they like um, either fail or succeed, the game has changed in 6 years as to how we need to position the conversation moving forward, because chiropractic business needs to be a better proposition for the future of chiropractic to stay in a growth mode. So I think what you said is really, really important for people to hear.
Yeah, and really structuring our business content here, we're trying our best to start to integrate the didactic teaching, the classroom teaching, into how they're performing in the clinic. So not only do they get to clinic, but they already have the tools and the abilities and the mindset from the classroom that they can then just repeat in the clinic, give them that fundamental idea and principle about what scripting might look like, what that patient interaction, what the patient education, what are those 12 visits of that initial care is going to take a look at, so we can start teaching them to lead the patients into the mindset, in the paradigm of chiropractic, so they understand what subluxation based chiropractic is and how best they can really get from what we have to offer. So once they have that didactic to clinic, then it makes an easy transition from clinic into practice. So we have that 3-tiered approach. So we're always looking for what is that next step, because within my department, we're not looking at graduates. We're looking at what the student's going to look like 3 years past graduation, to set those students up so they are productive, so they are confident in their abilities, and really step into that with the mindset saying, you know what, I can do this, but keeping it as simple as we can to allow them not to get cluttered or distracted from so many other bells and whistles that they have at their fingertips once they graduate, to say, oh, well, you can do this or you can do this. Sherman College is doing a great job in developing great adjusters, great students, and great mindsets. And what we need to do is start transitioning that into great business owners as well. We're starting to see that, and it's great to experience and get that feedback back from the students now. But you're seeing those success stories coming out. Say, yeah, all we do is adjust people. And I would, right before this call here, uh, Dr. Alejandro Elias was doing a podcast because him and his wife had $1 million practice their second year. And they are just looking at the fundamental principles and keeping it chiropractic. They're not getting cluttered. They're investing in their community. They're being part of their community. They're loving it. And so,
Well,
yeah,
I think the fundamental approach to successful chiropractic shouldn't be so hard to find.
no, no, it shouldn't. And it's all about the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. So it's going back to Zig Ziglar time and enjoying it, because that's everything that we're doing in business is all fundamental anyways, if you really want to succeed. And that's one of the biggest problems that we've had, is you have so many different avenues that you can take if we can start to condense that down into a single avenue and say, okay, here's a foundation that you can work with. Once you get into it, you can really develop that. And then if you want to start branching off on that, then have at it. Even in our clinic system, in our technique system, Sherman College, we are only focusing on 5 techniques in our clinic environment. We allow them to take whatever elective they want to do, but we want to make sure that our students can adjust and perform excellent once they leave here. And they are still focusing on chiropractic, not all this other strange stuff. I won't get
Well, I think it's important to make your main thing, and having competency and science, philosophy, and art of chiropractic is the foundations. So any school, and I urge everybody that watches our show to share it with a student, that if they're going to a college and they're not getting subluxation, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence, and supporting the sacred trust and the big idea, if they're not getting that at their schools, I urge everybody to share our show with a student that needs that type of fundamental inclusion, because if they're removing that type of fundamental framework from the chiropractic education, they need to go to a better school, or they need better mentors. And the person that influenced you to go to that school has lost their damn way. And we need to reapproach the people that are the student of today and tap them into this interview. We need to get them influenced into a Sherman Lyceum. We need to get them shadowing docs that are just doing chiropractic. And sometimes people will come at me, and I'm not a chiropractor, Heath, and they're like, bro, you're straight. I'm like, no, I'm a fundamentalist. And I think that if a chiropractor doesn't know how to check, detect, and correct a vertebral subluxation, they're not doing chiropractic. And they didn't need to go to chiropractic school to learn how to be a chiropractor to do these other things. So if they're doing these other things, they've lost their way as to why they picked their why to be a chiropractor. So, a lot of people come at me like that, and they're like, dude, you're so like fundamental. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to be? And I celebrate like all facets of chiropractic. Like if somebody wants to come on my show and talk about lasers, they can talk about lasers, but I make a distinction. It's not chiropractic. And people want to come on here and they talk about nutrition. I'm like, great, you can talk about nutrition all day and I'll probably agree with you, but it's not an adjustment, and it's not checking the spine and having an impact on the nervous system the way an adjustment does. And anybody can do nutrition, but only a chiropractor can check, detect, and correct a vertebral subluxation, right or right. And
absolutely.
I push people to the edge sometimes with my fundamental approach to chiropractic, but if we lose our way, we don't know where we're going anymore. And that's what I always want to support Sherman for protecting the sacred trust and keeping the fundamentals with philosophy and technique, and producing competent chiropractors that don't need to be rehabbed once they finish chiropractic college to come into the marketplace. Because what I find is most of the people I interact with, which are 1,300 interviews over the past 7 years, is people tell me that they have to bring somebody out of a chiropractic college other than Sherman or Life West, and they have to rehab this person and teach them what it is to be a chiropractor. And really, this person wants to get paid this much, and they want to be included into that chiropractic practice. But now they have to go learn how to be a competent adjuster. Now we have to reframe them into understanding what philosophy is. Right. So really, we're finding all these lost chiropractic students, and now we have to like re-educate them on how to have the fundamentals, where they're getting that as a part of the basics of being a student at Sherman.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And this is a shout out to Sherman as well with the Sherman Showcase. So if you know of any student or any potential student, you can advise them to check out Sherman Showcase. It's a weekend that they do every quarter. So no matter when it is, Sherman brings you down. They put you up in a hotel, you and a guest, and they show you what Sherman is, and they go through different aspects about that. And it's a great way to introduce people to the college, to the campus, to the feel and the environment, the family, the community that we've created here. So it's just a no-brainer to say, hey, at least check this out, because once you check it out, you're going to see a difference. And that's a huge thing. And that's, like you were saying, come to one of our Lyceum events. It's much different feel than you'll ever feel from any other place, because we stand on the stage talking about subluxation, talking about chiropractic, and talking about our principles as we go forward.
Well, leadership is important. I appreciate the leadership that you bring to the business department at Sherman. And I'm really thankful that you made time during your busy schedule to come on for episode 654 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I just want everybody to know to go to sherman.edu and check out the website, check out the Showcase Sherman weekends. If you're a chiropractic student and you're watching this and your school sucks, go show up to Showcase Sherman and transfer. Like, I can't tell people how much it is an importance to the future of chiropractic to get a real chiropractic education, to where you don't have to come out into the streets and not know anything about science, philosophy, or art of chiropractic from a watered down education. And you can get the real deal and do the same thing once and not have to go into the open market and be fixed with your technique or your fundamentals of philosophy. And I can't urge people enough to just check out Sherman and know why we support that college and know why that college in reverse supports us. So Dr. Heath, I appreciate you being on with me today.
Well, thank you. It's amazing how quickly this time flew by. But also something to urge the students too is, if they are in another college right now, if they are just trying to grit it out, there's organizations out there. I'm part of Delta Sigma Chi, which is DSC, Doctors of Straight Chiropractic. We're on 6 different campuses. It's interact with them and get involved with that as well. So we do have resources available, but if you want to check Sherman out, look for a Sherman Showcase.
And I don't mean to drop the hammer on the rest of the education resources out there. I just want people to know that if you want to come out of chiropractic college and know how to actually produce as a chiropractor, you want your education dollars to support that. And if you want a business to hire you on to be their associate and to come into that chiropractic family as a practitioner, you need to have the fundamentals in place before that's ever going to make sense for somebody to give you $80,000 to $100,000 a year, what you think you're worth.
Yeah. Yep. And we are wanting to produce those students so they are quality students to provide that to their host site.
Well, Dr. Heath, thank you for being on with us today. If you guys wanted to learn more, once again, go to sherman.edu. And I really appreciate you taking some time with us today. Your episode 654 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to close out with today?
Oh my goodness. I think we just touched the surface here today. So hopefully on a next episode, we can get into a little bit more about our program and how we're going to offer that. And this has been a ball, but I think that's good for now.
I'll certainly reach out to you and we can get another one scheduled, and we won't let it be 2 years of lapse. Okay.
Very much so. Very much so.
All right. Well, I'll close out with everybody telling you you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now. See you, Doc.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.